It was a cold Wednesday afternoon when I walked into the restaurant, feeling the weight of the day on my shoulders. My name is Emily, and I'm 28 years old. I've been a waitress for the past 5 years, trying to make ends meet while pursuing a career in graphic design. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, or at least it used to. I had high hopes for my future, but every day felt like I was stuck in a loop. I worked at a busy, upscale restaurant in the heart of the city, an environment where you had to look presentable, move quickly, and always be ready for the next customer. It wasn't the kind of job that made you feel valued, but I made the best of it. I tried to keep a positive attitude, even though the tips were sparse and the customers were demanding. Still, I had my dreams, and I pushed through the exhaustion because I knew that someday things would change. That day, however, felt different. As I walked in through the kitchen doors, I could sense something was off. The usual hum of the restaurant was muted, the air thick with tension. My manager, Karen, was frantically rushing around, talking on the phone, her face a mask of frustration. When she saw me, she motioned me over. "Emily," she said with a tight smile, "I need you to take table 4. They're important clients." I nodded, trying to shake off the sense of unease settling in my chest. Table 4 was always a tough one. The regulars, always demanding, always looking for something to complain about. But I knew better than to argue with Karen. As I approached the table, I saw a man and a woman sitting there. The man was well dressed in a suit, his posture rigid, and his eyes sharp. The woman had a cold, calculating air about her, her lips pressed in a tight smile. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of their gazes on me. They looked at me with the kind of judgment that only wealthy clients could have, and I knew this was going to be a long shift. "Good evening," I said with a smile, trying to mask the anxiety I felt. "My name is Emily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked me up and down, his gaze lingering a little too long. You seem young," he said finally, his voice laced with condescension. I smiled politely, though it stung. "I may be young, but I'm very experienced. I'll make sure everything is to your liking." The woman didn't even look up from her phone. She just waved her hand dismissively. "Get us a bottle of your best wine, and don't take too long." I nodded, trying to stay composed as I headed to the bar to fetch their wine. But as I walked away, I could feel the heat of their judgment still burning on my back. I tried my best to ignore it, focusing on the task at hand. But when I returned with the wine and set it on their table, things took a sharp turn. The man grabbed the bottle before I could even pour, his eyes never leaving mine. "Do you even know what you're doing?" he asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "This is supposed to be a 5-star restaurant. You're making us look bad." I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment, but I refused to let it show. I straightened up, trying to regain control of the situation. "I apologize, sir. I'm just doing my job. If you'd like, I can bring someone else to assist you." "No," he snapped. "I want you to get it right." The woman finally looked up, her eyes narrowing as she surveyed me. "You're not quite what I expected. Do you even know who we are?" I froze, unsure of how to respond. "I'm sorry, I don't. But I'll make sure to take excellent care of you tonight." Her lips curled into a smirk. "We're high-profile clients. You should be more respectful." The pressure started to mount. My palms began to sweat, and my heart raced in my chest. I'd dealt with difficult customers before, but this felt different. There was something in the way they spoke, a subtle arrogance that made me feel small, like I didn't belong here. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm sorry if I've given you the wrong impression. I'm here to make sure you have a great dining experience." The man scoffed. "Your best isn't good enough. We'll see about that." Before I could say anything else, he gestured for me to leave. "Come back when you've learned how to do your job properly." I turned away, feeling the sting of their words like a slap to the face. As I walked back to the kitchen, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. My confidence was starting to crack. Later that evening, as the night dragged on, things only got worse. The couple continued to nitpick at every little thing, finding fault in every dish I brought out. The wine wasn't poured correctly. The appetizers were too salty. My nerves were shot, but I kept a smile plastered on my face. I had to. This was my job, and I couldn't let them see me break. But when they ordered dessert, things took a turn I never could have expected. "I'll have the chocolate mousse," the woman said, "and make sure it's fresh. Not like last time." I nodded, walking away. But as I passed by the kitchen, I heard the sound of their laughter. I wasn't sure why, but it sounded mocking, like they were laughing at me. I went back to the table with the mousse, but when I set it down, the woman made a show of inspecting it, then pushed it away. "This is disgusting. This is exactly what I meant. You can't even get the simplest things right." I stood frozen for a moment, the anger rising in my chest. How could they be this cruel? But then I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had to keep it together. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," I said, my voice shaking. "I'll take it back and bring you something else." But the man grabbed my arm before I could walk away. "No," he said, his tone low and dangerous. "You'll fix it, or you'll lose your job." I pulled my arm away from him, my heart racing. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to speak up. "No, I won't let you talk to me like that anymore," I said, my voice trembling with both fear and defiance. "I've had enough of your insults." The woman's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "Don't act like you're perfect," I said, standing taller. "You've been rude to me all night, and I've done everything I can to be polite. But I'm done. You can complain all you want, but I will not let you treat me like this." The man and woman exchanged a glance, and for a moment it felt like time stood still. Then the man's face twisted into a sneer. "You're fired," he hissed. My heart sank. But I didn't back down. "I don't need this job. Not if it means being treated like trash." I walked away from their table, feeling the weight of their anger behind me. But I felt something else, too. A sense of relief. I had stood up for myself, and in that moment, I realized that I was worth more than their cruelty. As I walked out of the restaurant, I didn't know what the future held. But I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone treat me like that again. I had dignity, and I would fight to keep it. As I stepped out into the crisp night air, I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders, though the sting of humiliation still lingered in the pit of my stomach. The city lights buzzed around me, a stark contrast to the heaviness of the moment. I was free from the oppressive atmosphere of the restaurant, but uncertainty was creeping in, especially with the loss of my job. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. It was nearing the end of the month, and I had rent to pay. But for the first time in a while, the thought of facing another day of working under someone's thumb seemed unbearable. I needed a change, something different. As I stared at my phone, I wondered if there were any opportunities left for me in this city, or if I'd have to pack up and leave. A soft vibration interrupted my thoughts, and I glanced at my screen. It was an email notification, one from a company I'd applied to weeks ago. My fingers hovered over the screen as I opened it, the words in front of me almost too surreal to believe. "We would like to invite you to an interview for the position of senior graphic designer. We were impressed with your portfolio and would love to discuss your potential with our team. Please reply at your earliest convenience." My heart skipped a beat. A real opportunity. After weeks of applying and waiting, finally, something had come through. I immediately typed out a response, confirming my availability for the interview. Maybe this was the break I'd been waiting for, the one I could truly make my own. As I sat on a nearby bench, contemplating my next steps, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from my friend, Sarah. "Hey, heard what happened at the restaurant. I'm so proud of you for standing up for yourself. You deserve so much better than those people." A small smile tugged at my lips. Sarah was right. I'd faced enough situations where I'd let people walk all over me. But tonight, I'd drawn the line. Standing up for myself felt empowering, even though it had come with a cost. The phone rang, breaking me from my thoughts. It was an unknown number, but the city was always full of surprises. "Hello?" I answered, my voice a little shakier than I intended. "Hi, is this Emily? This is Karen from the restaurant. I know things ended on a rough note tonight, but I wanted to apologize for the way things went down with those customers. The way they treated you was completely unacceptable. They've been banned from the restaurant. I'll make sure to recommend you for a new position elsewhere if you're interested." I was taken aback by the call. I had expected nothing, especially not an apology from Karen, who had always been indifferent toward her staff. "Wow, Thank you, Karen," I said, struggling to find the words. "I didn't expect this from you. I know, I get it. But after hearing how those clients treated you, I realized I should have stepped in earlier. You didn't deserve that, and I want to make things right. If you need a reference or anything, just let me know. You have more than earned my respect." I was quiet for a moment, processing the unexpected turn in events. It was a strange feeling, hearing someone acknowledge my worth after all the years of putting up with mistreatment. It was validation, but also a reminder that sometimes it takes standing up for yourself to get what you truly deserve. "Thanks, Karen," I finally said, my voice firmer now. "I'll keep that in mind." We hung up, and as I stood up from the bench, a small weight lifted from my chest. I wasn't entirely sure what the future held, but I knew this moment was important. Tonight, I'd made a decision to no longer accept being a victim to others' behavior. I had my dignity intact, and I had a new opportunity on the horizon. As I made my way back to my apartment, I felt a spark of hope. The rejection and the tough times had all been part of the journey to this moment. Maybe it wasn't the job I'd hoped for, but it was a new beginning. For the first time in months, I could see a clear path ahead. The next day, I woke up early, fresh with excitement and anticipation. The job interview was set. I showered, dressed in the best outfit I could muster, and put on my best smile. This was it. I knew I had to give it my all. I couldn't let anything hold me back now. When I walked into the office building for my interview, I felt a surge of confidence. I was nervous, of course, but I reminded myself of what I had already achieved. Standing up to the rude customers, getting the call from Karen, and finding the strength to keep going. I wasn't just another waitress anymore. I was someone who could push through adversity and fight for her dreams. I sat down across from the hiring manager, a woman named Vanessa. She smiled warmly as she glanced at my resume. "Emily, it's a pleasure to meet you. We've been following your work closely, and we're really excited to get to know you better." Her words washed over me like a balm, and I knew I had found the place I belonged. As we talked about the job and my experience, I felt more at ease. The conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a while, I could see myself in the role. I wasn't just applying for another job, I was applying for the opportunity to thrive, to build a life I could be proud of. After the interview, I left the building with a sense of accomplishment, knowing I had done my best. It didn't matter what happened next, because I knew I had taken control of my own destiny. I walked back to my apartment, a smile playing at the corners of my lips. The phone call came the next afternoon. Vanessa's voice crackled with excitement. "Emily, I'm thrilled to offer you the position. Welcome to the team." I couldn't believe it. I had done it. All those hours of work, the struggles, and the frustrations had led me to this moment. As I sat down to call my dad, I reflected on the past few months. I had given away everything I had, money, time, energy, and had ended up on the other side stronger and more determined. It wasn't just the job that mattered, it was the journey that had brought me here. I ended the call with my dad, knowing that things would be different now. The life I dreamed of was within my reach. I had no more doubts. This was the beginning of something amazing. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. The office had its own rhythm, a blend of bustling energy and quiet focus. I dove headfirst into the work, learning the ropes, meeting my new colleagues, and adjusting to the fast-paced environment. But through it all, I kept thinking about how far I had come. A year ago, I never would have imagined being in this position, in this place, surrounded by opportunity. The first few weeks were full of challenges, as I got accustomed to the workload and the expectations. But with every task I completed, I grew more confident. I realized that I had made the right decision. The job wasn't just about the paycheck or the title. It was about the chance to build something meaningful that would allow me to create a future I could be proud of. I wasn't just working for a paycheck anymore. I was working for my future, for the life I wanted. I kept my head down and focused on the work, not wanting to make waves. But it didn't take long for me to catch the attention of the higher-ups. Vanessa, the hiring manager, who had initially brought me into the company, became a mentor of sorts. She was tough, but fair, and she pushed me to do my best. Her guidance, along with my own determination, helped me excel in ways I hadn't expected. As the months went by, I began to feel more settled. I found my place within the team and started to build relationships with my coworkers. But there were moments when I couldn't shake the memories of my past. The struggles, the sacrifices, the feeling of being invisible to everyone around me. Those memories kept me grounded, reminding me of how much I had overcome to get here. It was during one of these moments, while I was sitting at my desk late one evening, that I received a message from an unexpected source. Frank. I had nearly forgotten about the homeless man I'd met on that fateful day, the one who had given me so much more than I could have ever expected. His text read, "Hey, Emily, just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I hope things are going well for you. I've been thinking about you lately." I smiled as I read the message, feeling a warmth spread through me. It had been a while since that day, and I hadn't expected to hear from him. We hadn't exchanged contact information, but somehow he had managed to find me. His message was a reminder of the kindness I had received in the midst of my own struggle. I replied quickly, "I'm doing great, Frank. Thank you for checking in. I never forgot what you did for me that day. It really helped me more than you'll ever know." Frank's reply came almost immediately. "It's good to hear, Emily. You've got a lot of potential, and I can see you going far. Don't forget, you've always got someone rooting for you. Take care, okay?" I sat back in my chair and reflected on his words. It was strange how people came into our lives at the right time, just when we needed them. Frank, a man I had only met once, had made a lasting impression on me. He had reminded me of what it meant to give without expecting anything in return, to help others when they needed it most. I realized that the job, the money, the success, it was all important, but it wasn't everything. The most valuable thing I had gained from this journey was the understanding that it was our actions, our choices, that defined who we were. The choices I made every day, the way I treated others, and the way I stood up for what was right. Those were the things that truly mattered. The phone call that changed everything came 1 week later. Vanessa called me into her office, a serious tone in her voice. "Emily, we need to talk about something," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. I sat down, unsure of what to expect. Had I done something wrong? Was I being transferred? I braced myself for the worst. "We've been getting some great feedback about your work. Emily, the clients are happy, your team is happy, and you've consistently met the targets we set for you. But there's something else I want to discuss," Vanessa continued, pausing for a moment. "I've been considering you for a leadership position within the company." I couldn't believe it. A leadership position? Me? I had only been here a few months. I thought she was joking. "Wait, what?" I stammered, still processing the words she had said. Vanessa smiled, her expression warm. "You've proven yourself time and time again. You've shown the kind of leadership we need in this company. I think you're ready to take on more responsibility." I was speechless. The weight of her words sank in, and I felt a surge of pride that I had never expected to feel. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. The chance to prove that I was more than just a survivor of my circumstances. I had worked hard, stayed true to myself, and now it was paying off. "Vanessa, I don't know what to say," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "You don't need to say anything, Emily. Your work speaks for itself. You've earned this." From that moment forward, my life began to change in ways I never thought possible. The leadership role came with new challenges and responsibilities, but I was ready. I had spent too long being overlooked, too long doubting myself. Now, I had a seat at the table, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. And as I stood in front of the mirror that evening, getting ready for my first big meeting in my new role, I couldn't help but smile. I had come so far, too far to ever turn back. My future was brighter than I could have ever imagined, and I was ready to take on whatever came next. As I walked out of the office, my heart was racing. The adrenaline from the meeting still buzzed in my veins. Everything had fallen into place, and the weight of the past few months, the uncertainty, the struggle, the doubt, began to lift off my shoulders. I had proven myself, not just to Vanessa, but to myself. I had taken every step, every challenge in stride. And now it was all leading somewhere. For the first time in years, I truly believed I was where I was meant to be. But it wasn't just about the job, the title, or the paycheck. It was about something deeper. It was about having the courage to keep going when the world tried to tell you otherwise. It was about showing up every single day, no matter the circumstances. And it was about doing what was right, even when it seemed like no one was watching. As I stepped out into the bustling streets of the city, I thought back to everything that had happened. The kindness of a stranger, the constant pushback from people who didn't believe in me, and the quiet strength that had kept me going. I didn't need to explain to anyone why I'd made the choices I did. It was my journey, my story, and I had earned every step of it. Later that evening, as I sat down to a quiet dinner at home, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had taken risks. I had stepped out of my comfort zone, and even though things hadn't always gone as planned, I had never given up. Now, as I looked ahead, the future felt full of possibilities. I had made it this far, and I knew I could go even further. The phone buzzed on the table, and I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Frank, the man I had met on that fateful day. "Hey, Emily, Just wanted to check in. I'm proud of you. You're going places. Keep going. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. Frank had been right. I didn't need anyone else's approval. I had everything I needed to succeed within me. As I sat there in the quiet of my apartment, sipping my tea, I thought about the events of the past few weeks, the job interview, the risks I took, and the unexpected kindness from Frank. It all felt like a strange dream, but in the best possible way. I had pushed through the darkest moments, the ones where it seemed like everything was falling apart. And now I was here, starting a new chapter in my life. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I stood up, a bit surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there he was, Frank. "Emily," he said with a grin, his eyes sparkling. "I thought I should pay you a visit." I froze, unsure of how to react. Was this some kind of coincidence, or was he here for something else? "Frank, what are you doing here?" I asked, my voice a bit shaky. He held up a small bag, almost sheepishly. "I know we didn't exactly have the proper goodbye last time, so I brought you something." I stepped aside, letting him in, still confused by his sudden appearance. As we sat down, he handed me the bag. I opened it to find a beautiful set of stationery with my name embossed on it. "I wanted to give you this," he said, his tone suddenly more serious. "I've been meaning to tell you something." I looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean?" Frank hesitated, his gaze flicking to the floor before meeting mine. "The truth is, I'm not actually homeless." My heart skipped a beat. I felt a surge of confusion and betrayal. "What? But you told me you were." He smiled softly, a knowing look in his eyes. "I know, and I'm sorry for deceiving you. I wanted to see if you'd help me without knowing who I really was. I was testing you, and I'm so glad I did." I stared at him in disbelief. "But why? Why pretend to be something you're not?" "I guess I needed to see if you were the kind of person who could truly see past the surface," he explained. "I'm actually the CEO of a tech company, and I wanted to find someone like you, someone who would help a stranger without expecting anything in return. I've been watching you for a while, Emily. I saw how you handled the interview and how you treated others. You have a heart of gold, and that's exactly what I need in my team." I was speechless. The man I had been helping, the man who had seemed so broken and kind, was someone entirely different than I had imagined. But it made sense now. The job offer, the connection we had shared, all of it. I felt a mix of emotions, surprise, disbelief, and something else I couldn't quite place. "So, you're saying you were never actually homeless?" I asked, trying to process everything. He nodded. "I wasn't. But I felt that if I could make you see me as a person, and not just someone you could help, then you would understand the kind of leader I want in my company. And, Emily, you are that person." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw sincerity, something I hadn't expected from someone who had gone through such lengths to test me. He wasn't just the CEO of a company. He was someone who recognized value beyond wealth or status. "You tricked me," I said, still trying to make sense of it all. "I know," he replied, a sheepish smile on his face, "and I'm sorry. But I wanted to see your true self. And now I know you're more than just a good worker. You're someone who leads with heart." I sat there in silence, my thoughts swirling. Frank wasn't who I thought he was, but in a strange way, that made him even more intriguing. And now that the truth was out in the open, I felt an unexpected warmth for him. Something more than just gratitude. "What happens now?" I asked, unsure of where we stood. He reached across the table and took my hand gently. Now, I want to make sure that we're not just colleagues, but something more. You've shown me that you're not just about the job or the paycheck. You care about people, about the world around you. And that's exactly the kind of person I need in my life. I looked at him, a smile tugging at my lips. You're serious, aren't you? I am, he said softly. I've been serious from the start. And I think you should give me a chance to prove it. In that moment, everything clicked. The uncertainty, the tests, the games, it all faded away, replaced by something real, something raw. I realized then that I had been testing myself all along to see if I could rise above the struggles and stay true to who I was. And now, with Frank by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. Because I knew that, no matter what, I wasn't alone. So, there we were, two people who had crossed paths in the most unexpected of ways, one who had everything and one who had nothing. But together, we had found something greater than either of us could have imagined. And as I looked at Frank, his eyes full of hope and promise, I knew that this was just the beginning. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about a job at all. It was about the connections we made, the kindness we showed, and the love we found when we least expected it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I felt ready to embrace it. By his side. Life doesn't always hand you what you expect. Sometimes you have to fight for it. But the most important thing is to stay true to yourself, because in the end, no one else's opinion matters as much as your own. And when you trust yourself and keep pushing forward, you'll find that success follows. I hope this story resonates with you. Life is full of challenges, and sometimes it's hard to keep moving forward. But remember, every obstacle is an opportunity to grow. You're stronger than you think. Keep fighting for what you want, and don't let anyone tell you you can't make it. What's your story? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to prove yourself? Share it with me in the comments. Let's keep the conversation going. You never know who you might inspire by sharing your journey.